Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good things. And joining me here, again, is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Well... can I be heard?
I think everybody can hear you this time.
I can, but even if I wasn't, it's just great to be here anyway, John.
For some of you who might be jumping in and watching us live right now, you might be noticing, wait a second, why is the show on at this time? Here's what happened. I'm going to give you guys a bit of a rundown for what has happened. So we tried to do the show at 10 a.m. We had to pull the plug on it because of tech issues. Here's what's going on. Just for any of you who might care to know about this stuff. To do my live shows, what I have used for years, going all the way back to like AMC days, I use a piece of software called Wirecast, which is a premium professional level of a streaming software. Now there's another, it's not perfect, but I have used it for many years and it works great. Here's the trick though. Here's the trick. There's another piece of software that a lot of people use that's called OBS. Many of you have probably heard of it. It's what most Twitch streamers use. It's this piece of software called OBS. Many Twitch streamers use it and all that kind of stuff. And it's good, but it's never had the higher level stuff. It's never been as professional as Wirecast has been. So I've always used Wirecast. However, I've gotten notified that, it's made a lot of updates in the past year, especially a lot of really good updates to OBS. So I got convinced to try OBS and I committed that I would try it for a month. And I've been using it for about a week and a half already. And I've already discovered some frustrations with it, but it is streamed no problem. And it certainly is better than it used to be. And then what happened was today we went to do the show. We started the show up. Everything was working fine, but all of a sudden nobody could hear Rob. But every indicator that we had said Rob was working fine. And then the intro music kept looping, right? That's the other thing we had. But the intro music was deleted. It was gone. And so we ended the stream. I didn't change anything. I rebooted OBS about 3 times, and about on the 3rd or 4th time that I just rebooted OBS, all of a sudden everything started working again. So to be fair, this is the first time OBS let me down on a live stream, but I don't know. I'm not going to judge it on one thing. I am going to give it a few more weeks to see how I like it. It is a free version. That's the nice thing about OBS, Rob, is that it's free, as opposed to Wirecast, which is not free. It's very expensive, but it's rock solid, generally speaking. So anyway, that's where we're at. Anyway, guys, it's good to have you here with us today. We've got a lot of things to talk about here, but let's get a couple of house cleaning items out of the way. First of all, if you're relatively new around here, or if you haven't done so already, why don't you take a second and click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the John Campea YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on all the things we've got going on around here. Also, guys, going to let you know, we're going to do the show in 2 parts. We've got some topics we've got lined up. We're going to do the first half of the show, topics that you guys have submitted to us. And then we're going to go into the second half of the show and take your live comments and questions. And how do you get a live comment or question on the show? Well, it's really simple. You go to the tip link that's near the top of the description of this video. Just click on it there, or you can enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. But I want to draw your attention to something, guys. A lot of times tips and questions come in that are listed as anonymous. That's what happens when you don't fill out your name, because you see the top line in that box there, it says your name. A lot of people forget to fill that out. And guys, if you're going to support this channel and give us a tip and send in a question, I want to make sure your name gets a shout out. So make sure you guys fill out that name part when you do send that in. And thank you so much for all you guys who do show us your support. Okay, guys. With that down, let's start getting into some stuff here, shall we? And we're going to start off with an off the top. And the off the top is this. We all know and have known for a long time that one of the big problems when it comes to content in the last number of decades has been piracy. Piracy is a big issue. And for the last number of years, actually for nearly a decade, the #1 pirated show on television has been Game of Thrones. Now that won't surprise many people, if any people at all. But now there is a new champion. I'm sure a show that would rather not be the champion, but the new, most downloaded, most pirated piece of content out there is none other than Mandalorian. Mandalorian is now officially the most pirated series out there. Now, on the one hand, you'd hear that and think, well, that's no surprise. It's an extremely popular thing. A lot of the people like us in the nerd culture were also, people know how to use BitTorrents and things like that. Not a big surprise. I will say, Rob, the one thing that surprised me a little bit about this was the fact that unlike when Mandalorian season 1 came out, Disney was basically only in a small handful of territories. So we knew the first season of Mandalorian was going to be really pirated. I'm only a little bit surprised now because Disney Plus has rolled out in a lot of other territories, but I guess to be fair, there's still a lot of territories it's not available in where a lot of people and fans and consumers don't even have a legitimate option to purchase it, even if they wanted to. So I suppose it shouldn't be that surprising. Anyway, Rob, you see this. What are your thoughts on The Mandalorian being the most pirated show of 2020?
I don't think it's much of a surprise, John. I think probably it started out because a lot of people at first didn't have Disney Plus, and the people that want to see, and the people that don't have Disney Plus now, everybody wants to see The Mandalorian. And if they didn't, I think the end of season 2 made the rest of the world want to see it. And it just does not surprise me at all that this is the most pirated. It's probably the most pirated show, not just of 2020, probably, but of all time, I would imagine.
I think I read that Game of Thrones still holds that title,
really? Well,
and probably will for a while, but Game of Thrones still holds that title. But anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about that Mandalorian being the most pirated thing of 2020? I'm sure that's not something that the good folks at Lucasfilm want to be one of their badges of honor. That's not something that they wanted to have as their big claim to fame, if you will. What do you guys think about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's get into our main topics today, shall we? And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them. Whenever you come across a big story or topic that you think should be a main issue here on the John Campea Show, just head on over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Samuel Pole, who writes, "This broke towards the end of the day, but it looks like Quibi could sell its original content to Roku, per the Wall Street Journal. Given how massive Roku's installed user base is, it is the biggest in the world. I see this as a brilliant move. I was one of the 5 people who used Quibi, for the free trial, and some of the stuff wasn't half bad. I'm sure at least a few of their shows could find an audience if they're not broken up into small chunks. What are your thoughts?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And of course, the story and the legend of Quibi, if you will, continues to go on. Quibi was, of course, this really ambitious idea to start a brand new streaming service. But what was going to make it different from everything else was 2 factors. Factor number 1, it was a service that was only going to be available on mobile platforms. You couldn't watch it on your television. You had to watch it on your phone or on your tablet or something like that. The second thing that was going to make it unique was that all of their stuff was going to be 10 minutes long. And remember, Rob, they put out these ad campaigns. How long does it take you to get to work? Well, it takes me 3 Quibis to get to work. Remember that stupid little ad campaign they did?
I remember Quibi, John. I made fun of it all year long.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, in a very inglorious fashion, in a very inglorious way, of course, it didn't work. It did not catch on, not surprisingly, and it went out of business. Now there are reports coming out that Roku, now that Quibi's gone out of business, what do they do with all of this content? The reports coming out, like I said, coming out of the Wall Street Journal, is that Roku is in talks to acquire the Quibi library. Now, you may not know this. Roku, I'm one of the very first Roku adopters going back many years. But Roku actually does have sections on it that are its own content. Roku has its own curated content besides other people's apps. Not a lot of people knew about that. So Roku's now apparently looking at this and thinking, hey, you know what? This Quibi content is out there. It needs a home. It'll give us a little bit of a leg up, I guess, on the other streaming platforms like Amazon Fire or Apple TV Plus or the NVIDIA Shield or whatever else might be out there for original content. And Rob, I feel kind of split about this because I feel like this could go either way. On the one hand, to me, it all depends on what's the price. If Roku can get and acquire all of Quibi's original content for dirt cheap, if they can get it for dirt cheap, I can see the upside here. It is another distinguishing factor between you and the other streaming platforms. It kind of makes you unique that you have this original content yourself. And from everything I've heard, at least some of the original Quibi content wasn't that bad. So it could be good. But it has to be dirt cheap because the reality is nobody watched Quibi. Obviously that's hyperbole, but for the most part, nobody watched Quibi. So it's not like people are going to go, I can't decide between this Apple TV device and this Roku. What Quibi shows are on Roku? I'm going to get a Roku. I can't see that happening. So for the right price, but it has to be ridiculously cheap, I can see it. Otherwise, listen, I've owned a Roku since they first came out. I have never watched anything original on the Roku. I use my Roku for convenient, a great user interface to access all the other apps. So if the price is in rock bottom, I don't see this as a good move. Rob, what do you think about this?
Well, John, I am no fan of Quibi. And what I thought was weird about Quibi was they produced a movie and then broke it up into parts. So you could watch it in, a Quibi, 10 minutes or less or whatever. And I just don't think that, and on the go too. So I don't think any of their content, I never saw it. I never watched any of their content because I mercilessly made fun of their format because I thought it was completely ill-conceived. But maybe if they put the movies that were broken up into into Quibis, they put them back and put them up as a film, and you can sit down and watch the film from beginning to end like normal people watch movies, then it might work. I mean, then it's good to see content that had a lot of really top tier talent involved.
Very top tier talent.
Accessible again. My objection to Quibi wasn't necessarily their programming, although I don't think they had even one destination show. I thought the whole premise was flawed with Quibi, and it was bared out. It was flawed, and it was something that they had thought about 10 years ago that the landscape has changed. But I like to see that the work just won't disappear. I think if Roku's going to put it on their platform, I don't think they're going to go, and here's our Quibi channel. Watch things that were going to be on Quibi. I don't think it's going to be like that. But they're just going to put it up as any other kind of programming, which I think is great because all the work that went into it will not be lost to the sands of time. It'll still be out there and available.
Now, of course, part of the irony that is not lost here is that Quibi very specifically, when it launched, was like, we're not going to be on Roku and we're not going to be on the Amazon Fire. You can only watch this on a mobile device. And now here they're talking about this. For a little bit more rounded idea about this, this is what comes to us in the wrap, and they write about this. Quibi content could be getting a second life on Roku. The streaming device maker is closing in on a deal for the content library from the now defunct streaming service, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. The addition of Quibi's content, which are each no longer than 10 minutes in length, would help Roku bolster its own ad-supported app, I think minimally, the Roku channel. Quibi's library would mark its first exclusive programming deal. Its first and most likely only. So again, bottom line here, hey, this could be a good move if they're negotiating a absolute rock bottom, dirt cheap price. If so, why not? But if it's much more than that, I don't see the value. Guys, question is, what do you think about that? Do you think this is a good move for Roku to acquire the Quibi content? Did any of you guys watch the Quibi content? Did you like it? Did you not? What do you think about this situation? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move into main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Alton Wang. And Alton Wang writes, Shia LaBeouf was fired off of the movie Don't Worry, Darling by director Olivia Wilde because of bad behavior, and Olivia Wilde has a quote-unquote no asshole policy. She's famous for that, actually. Shia LaBeouf is a good actor, but does not have the best reputation. That's putting it mildly. Is it a good ideal for a director to fire an actor only based on personality, even if they are a good actor? All right, thanks for sending that in. And yeah, so what the situation here is this. Olivia Wilde, who of course did Booksmart, one of my favorite films of that year when it came out. That was her directorial debut, and she totally crushed it. She's got a new movie now, her second one she's working on, called Don't Worry, Darling. Now, Shia LaBeouf was supposed to be in this movie. And then an announcement came out that there was a scheduling conflict. And of course, scheduling conflict is the cover-all answer they use to cover everything up. But there was a scheduling conflict, and that he had to depart the project. Well, now reports are coming out that that is not why Shia LaBeouf is no longer on the project. He got his ass fired by Olivia Wilde. This report comes to us from Variety, who writes the following. Variety has learned that LaBeouf was dropped from Don't Worry, Darling. Though shooting had not yet started when LaBeouf departed, insiders close to the project say that LaBeouf displayed poor behavior and his style clashed with the cast and crew, including Olivia Wilde, who ultimately fired him. He is not an easy guy to work with, a source close to the film says, adding that LaBeouf was off-putting to those associated with the project, particularly Olivia Wilde, who is known to build collaborative sets with a zero asshole policy, the policy we just talked about a moment ago. This is unfortunate to hear. This is really unfortunate to hear for a number of reasons. Reason number one is Shia LaBeouf is a great actor. I mean, you guys have heard me say that for a very long time. He is a great actor. And what makes this extra unfortunate is the fact that he's coming off a year that he had where he had Honey Boy and Peanut Butter Falcon, both wonderful movies in which he gives remarkable performances in each, and he had that done in 1 year. He even got to make an appearance at the Oscars for it, right? He got to be a presenter at the Oscar, right? So, look, I know there is a lot of stuff surrounding his personal life. We're not here to go into that right now. But it's unfortunate to hear a guy that is as talented as Shia LaBeouf continuing to self-sabotage his own career, because the dude is remarkably gifted. He's absolutely incredibly gifted. Now, getting over to the question that the person who wrote in the email asked Rob about, is it a good idea for a director to fire an actor just because that maybe they're a jerk? You know, if they're a really good actor, is it a good idea? 1,000%. It's a good idea to fire them if they're terrible on set, because, you know, Rob, you've been on more sets than me, but I've been on a number of them. And for those of you who may not have been on sets, you know, it is a high pressure, high intensity, rapidly moving, codependent, absolutely relying on everybody doing their job. And it's a very cohesive, collaborative thing making films. And when you have to have a team like that, and you got a cog in that machine that is mussing everything else up, that is causing more tension than needed, that is causing conflict that you don't need, when it's causing all these problems that are above and beyond just, you know, normal problems, when you got to deal with all this stuff anyway, you got to remove that piece of the puzzle. You got to take that piece of the puzzle and you got to remove it. It is unfortunate for Don't Worry, Darling, that they're losing out on a talent such as Shia LaBeouf. It is unfortunate for Shia LaBeouf that he continues to sabotage his own career, considering his unbelievable natural gifts. But yeah, if you're a director on a set and you can already see somebody's causing problems in your movie, that will affect the movie.
Yep.
That will affect the movie. And it absolutely is. Now, and look, Rob, it should be pointed out here, you and I were not on set. You and I were not involved with the conversations between Olivia Wilde and Shia LaBeouf, so we don't know what actually happened. All we can go by is what Variety is reporting here. But yeah, if you're causing problems, the director should absolutely remove you. And the sooner the better. Because what you don't want to do, Rob, is get 3 weeks into shooting and then go, okay, this is not working. And now you got to go out and get another actor, and you got to redo all those 3 weeks. So it was probably the right move. Rob, you've heard about this situation. What's your take on it?
Well, like you just said, John, I mean, the one thing about the motion picture business or Hollywood in general is that part of how you get jobs and how you build a reputation is people have to like to work with you. It's an incredibly social environment. You're with people 12 hours a day minimum. Sometimes it can be 6 days a week, and you're working in very close quarters. And, part of working in Hollywood is to be a social creature who is easy to get along with in addition to being great at your job. And if there is a disruptive element on the set, no matter where that comes from, if it comes from an actor, like you said, and they are off-putting to the other actors for any other reason, or the director, it's not good for the morale of the entire set. It becomes a poison. Every time that actor comes on set, the crew is like, uh-oh, here we go again. What's going to happen to the other actors? And if it interferes with what you're getting in camera, it has to change. You can't allow money being spent every single day if there's somebody that's not working out. And it's never a great position to be in, but it's a call that has to be made. I think back to, it wasn't that she was a bad actress, but Geneviève Bujold was the original captain of the Starship Voyager on Star Trek Voyager. And she only shot for a couple days, and they replaced her. And she understood. And it wasn't that she was bad or anything as a person. She just wasn't working out. And they made the tough call. And it happens. And in the case of this, I like that Olivia Wilde has a no asshole policy, because life is too damn short and working in movies is too damn hard. And at the end of the day, all you're left with is the final finished film. And if it's not good, well, it's not good for anybody. So you've got to make sure that what you're doing is the best it can be. Otherwise, you're not going to come out with a great movie. And otherwise, what's the point? Why let your movie suffer?
Yeah. And of course, this now just adds as the next thing upon a lot of, let's just say, drama going on off camera with Shia LaBeouf lately. And you guys can go and read up on that stuff yourself. Rob, one aspect of this that I find that I'm really impressed with is, a lot of directors put up with difficult actors because they need to get their movie made and they want to get this done. You would think that somebody like an Olivia Wilde, who's now only making her second movie, might be intimidated by that. Think, I got to have this actor in my movie. I got to tell you, I'm very impressed that for somebody only doing their second film will go, no, look, my movie, my project comes first. This is bad for my project. She didn't feel the pressure that I've got to keep this big name star who's extremely talented in, that I've got to do what's best for my movie and make this move. And the fact that she felt empowered enough, again, as only a second time director, despite how good the first movie was, that must have been a difficult call for her to make, but her movie's probably going to benefit from that. Don't you think?
I do. And I think it also speaks to the people that she's working with. You also need a powerful producing staff to go along with this decision. The studio, the financiers. This is not something that ever happens lightly, because a Shia LaBeouf does mean something to the marketplace, and it does mean something to the producers and the studio. So this was not a move that was done willy-nilly. This was probably not something anybody really wanted to do, but it was done for the best. It was for the best for the film. And I salute everybody, beginning with her and all of her producing staff that stood behind her, and the financiers and the studios that thought it was the right call. It's exactly what should happen. It shows how a production is functioning properly. And I got to tell you, man, I can't wait to see this movie. The premise of it sounds right up my alley. I don't know if it's a fantasy like The Prisoner, sci-fi, something weird's going on. I can't wait to see it. And I just want to see the best version of this movie possible. And I think that's what we're going to get. And
one of the things, again, we are here to talk about this story, particularly, not all the other things going on with Shia LaBeouf. But I have been a fan of Shia LaBeouf since I met Shia on the set of the first Transformers movie. I was lucky enough, Paramount flew me down. I got to be on set of the first Transformers movie, and I got about 20 minutes just to hang out with Shia when he was still a kid. right? And he was so enthusiastic and he was so excited and he had such a positive, and I've always been really impressed by the dude's acting chops. And it's really, really unfortunate to see anybody sabotage themselves, but it's extra unfortunate when you see somebody who has the degree of natural gifts that Shia has as a performer, self-sabotaging his own career. So I'm just going to continue to hope for the best for him, that he can get his crap together. And hopefully better days will be ahead for him if he can, get his crap under control. At any rate, guys, question is, what do you think about this? Were you surprised to hear about this, about Olivia Wilde firing the guy? Maybe not. Maybe think it's well-deserved. Whatever. What do you guys think? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 3, shall we? And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Zendal Admore, who writes, "Hello, John and Rob. With 2021 now here, I was wondering if you guys could point us to what are your most anticipated movies of this year and which movies we should keep our eyes on. I know 2020 was a terrible year, but the upside is that we have a lot of great movies to look forward to this year. Thank you, and may your new year be amazing." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Zendal. And yes, 2021 was pretty much a write-off as far as, or 2020 was a write-off as far as a lot. There were some great movies to come out in 2020, don't get me wrong, but it is a year that's always going to have a giant asterisk beside it whenever we look back on it. However, that has left us in a situation where we have an abundance, if not an embarrassment of riches, Rob, as you would say, of films coming out in 2021. Now, I'm not generally a top 10 guy, but I will at the end of the year do a top 10 films of the year, which I did not do for 2020 for obvious reasons. But I also like to talk about the movies I am most looking forward to this coming year. So Rob and I are each going to give our lists here. And by the way, you're not going to agree with my list and you're not going to all completely agree with Rob's list. That's the beauty of these lists. They're fun to do. So let's jump over now into the Campea classroom, shall we? And let's start talking about the films that I have, first of all, as honorable mention. I've got a couple of films here that I want to mention that are not in my top 10, but I'm going to give an honorable mention to. Honorable mention I want to give to is Top Gun Maverick. Now, why wouldn't this movie be in my top 10? Well, it's just like, this is a movie that should have come out a decade ago, literally. But I'm still excited. We're going to see Maverick again, so I got Top Gun Maverick. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Obviously, I'm super excited. They got a good Canadian kid in there leading the way, not to mention one of the stars of Kim's Convenience. Very stoked about that. I think this is going to be a very exciting film. Totally looking forward to it. Nightmare Alley. Get this. This is a movie being directed by Guillermo del Toro. You've got Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Willem Dafoe. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, that just that by itself, we've seen no trailer, we've seen no anything. That by itself is it Guillermo del Toro directing Willem Dafoe, Toni Collette, Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett. I mean, other than maybe the Street Monster, she might be the best actress on the planet. I mean, this sounds amazing. I cannot wait. My fourth honorable mention, and these are in no particular order, is The Tragedy of Macbeth. I am a sucker for Shakespearean stuff. I am also a sucker for Denzel Washington, and I'm also a sucker for Frances McDormand and Brendan Gleeson, by the way. Amish from Braveheart. I love Brendan Gleeson. He, of course, is Donald Gleeson's father. Love him. And it's being directed by Joel Coen of the Coen brothers. This is the first film I believe he's directing without his brother, but it's a Shakespearean thing. I'm all for it. Tragedy of Macbeth. Cannot wait. And then, of course, Eternals. Eternals there's a lot unknown about it. It's up in the air. It didn't make my top 10 most anticipated, but obviously with the cast, the lineup they've got there, not to mention you've got Chloe Zhao, who is directing it. That's getting a lot of buzz for Nomadland, is directing it. A lot of reasons to be excited for Eternals. So those are my honorable mentions. Okay, let's get into my top 10, shall we? We're going to start off at number 10, Morbius. This might catch some people by surprise that I would have Morbius on my top 10, but what can I tell you? I was a big sucker for that Venom movie, man. I know not everybody loved it the way I did. I had a ludicrously good time watching that movie. For them to come back now with Morbius, Jared Leto, you got an Academy Award winning actor who's got that new movie he's also got coming out with other Academy Award winners, Denzel Washington, Rami Malek. What's the name of that one again?
The Little Things.
The Little Things.
That's on my list.
Which I don't know how I didn't put that in my honorable mentions. I don't know how I left that off my list. Guys, consider there to be a sixth one on my honorable mentions list, The Little Things. And I thought the trailer smashed it. I love the trailer. So my number 10 right now is Morbius. My number 9 is a movie you may or may not have heard of. It's called 3,000 Years of Longing. Here's the really cool thing about this thing. You've got Idris Elba in this thing, right? And Idris Elba, it's a story of a woman who goes traveling the world, and then here's the part that gets weird, and comes across a genie. And again, it stars Idris Elba. This is something to me, and Tilda Swinton, by the way, is in it too. So it's Idris Elba, Tilda Swinton. It's being directed by, I think George Miller is directing it. From Mad Max Fury Road, George Miller is directing it. So you got George Miller directing, Tilda Swinton, Idris Elba, a woman meets a genie. Okay, sounds good enough to me. So number 9 for me is 3,000 Years of Longing. Okay, my next one up at number 8 is Mission Impossible 7. I can't not have this movie on there. The Mission Impossible films just continue to crank out huge, incredible excitement and energy and thrills. They've just done such a good job. And I was never a big Mission Impossible guy for the first couple of chapters in the franchise, but they've really turned it on lately. So I've got to be very excited about Mission Impossible 7. That comes in at my number 8 spot. In my number 7 spot, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Again, I know not everybody loved the first Venom like I did, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you how just thoroughly entertained I was by it. It just gave me glee. Every time I watched it, it made my heart feel joy. I really loved it. And so for that reason, I've got it as high up as my number 7 most anticipated film. My number 6 most anticipated film, staying in that whole Spider-Man vein, we got Spider-Man 3. I loved Spider-Man Homecoming. I really liked Spider-Man Far From Home. I didn't like Far From Home quite as much as Homecoming, but still, Tom Holland has been an incredible Spider-Man. Watts has been great in it. Having this merger of Sony and Marvel Spider-Man, collaborating with those things, it's worked really well. So for that reason, I've got Spider-Man as my number 6 most anticipated film. My number 5 most anticipated film, and this one is winning all the early awards. It is Chloe Zhao's Nomadland with Frances McDormand, who's we already talked about a little bit sooner. All the various regional critic awards seem to be giving this thing Picture of the Year and all this kind of stuff. It's clearly going to be one of the major Oscar players. And again, for those of you really interested in the MCU, it is directed by Chloe Zhao, who is going to be directing the MCU movie, The Eternals. So number 5 for me is Nomadland. All right. In the number 4 spot, now we're really getting up there. And this is based on a couple of things, but way up here high, I've got Suicide Squad. First of all, I'm a big fan of James Gunn. I just think his absolute bonkers wonkiness that he brings to screen is always delightful. And I love what he does. Clearly you saw what he did with the Guardians of the Galaxy. But then the trailer they showed us at DC Fandom was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I loved every second of it. Everything we're hearing about it gets me excited. So my number 4 most anticipated film is Suicide Squad. All right, going into number 3. My 3rd most anticipated film coming into this year is James Bond, No Time to Die. Just despite the fact that, look, I love the new James Bond films with, the last one, not Quantum of Solace. What was the last one with the Spectre? Okay, Spectre. Yeah, Spectre I didn't love, and Quantum of Solace was questionable, but still overall, I've just loved the Daniel Craig era Bond films. The trailers, which came out 17 years ago now, the trailers for No Time to Die have been wonderful and exciting. And so for me, and it's James Bond. So James Bond for me is number 3. At number 2, and I'll tell you what, it was a tough for me to think about this for the final 2. But at number 2 for me, The original one was my favorite film of the year the original came out. So I got to go with A Quiet Place 2. Again, I think it was 2018. Was that the year of A Quiet Place? I think so. The year it came out, to me, it was easy. That was the best movie of the year, was the first Quiet Place. What John Krasinski was able to do with that film, the utilization of atmosphere and context and setting with incredible characters and great performances, legitimate scares. It's just a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful movie. The trailer for the sequel looked incredible as well. So for me, A Quiet Place 2 is my second most anticipated film of 2021, which leaves us with the number one. And you guys probably know what it is since you haven't seen it mentioned yet. It's Dune. Dune is the one that is just captured my imagination. And it's 80% the reason it is my most anticipated film of the year is because it's Denis Villeneuve. Denis coming on to direct this source material, which is never really, Rob, Dune is never really, while I like the miniseries, it's never really been able to be brought to fruition or reach its potential on the screen. In the hands of a director like this, with the cast that it has, this could be the next great sci-fi epic. This really can be the next great sci-fi epic. So once again, I'm going to give my honorable mentions: Top Gun, Shang-Chi, Nightmare Alley, The Tragedy of Macbeth, Eternals, and the one with Denzel Washington, which is called again...
The Little Things.
The Little Things. So I got to add, let me add that in there right now. The Little Things. Got to add that one in there too. All right, my number 10 is Morbius. Number 9, 3,000 Years of Longing. Number 8, Mission Impossible 7. Number 7, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Number 6, Spider-Man 3. Number 5, Nomadland. Number 4, Suicide Squad. Number 3, No Time to Die. Number 2, A Quiet Place 2. And number 1, Dune. That's it, Rob. That's my top 10 with a couple of honorable mentions. So I yield the floor to you, sir. What are the films you're really looking forward to this year?
Well, you asked me to make a list yesterday. See, viewers should know there's always homework for this show. You send out notes the day before. I sometimes have to go read articles and consult with things to find out what my thoughts are. But you asked me to come up with a list. And I came up with 32 movies, John. 32 movies by month. But I'm going to spare you all of them. But I just went through the release schedule and came up with 32 movies. But I'll just give you my 10. And then talk about the other things I'm excited about. Number 1, my first movie, the only movie.
Wait. Maybe you should go in reverse order. Maybe you should count from 10 down to 1. Build the anticipation for people.
I was going to.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I was gonna, but really, yeah. So I sort of arranged them by movie. So number 10, Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
Godzilla versus Kong. Only because as a kaiju fan my whole life, I loved Godzilla King of the Monsters. I love Kong Skull Island. Bring on the rumble. I'm ready to rumble. Number 9 is The Little Things. In terms of my list, this was a script that is 28 years old that has been resurrected, brought back from the dead. Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, and Rami Malek. Serial killer stuff right up my alley. That was 10,
number 9.
8. Number 8, The Many Saints of Newark.
Oh yes.
That comes out in March. The Sopranos prequel movie, which I think I can't wait to see. Number 7, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is Nicolas Cage basically playing Nicolas Cage and Nicolas Cage. Sounds pretty crazy to me. Then a movie called The Tomorrow War, a new film, science fiction movie. Chris Pratt stars in it. Yep. Earth is losing in an alien invasion, and they find a way to bring soldiers from the past back to fight the war, which sounds right up my alley. Number 5, is that what I'm at now?
Yep.
The Last Duel, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Ridley Scott movie. Looking forward to it. Number 4, The Matrix 4. Anything that it's Lana Wachowski's directing. Can't wait to see what's happening there. Number 3 is No Time to Die, obviously, because I'm a James Bond fan, and I can't wait. I can't believe I've had to wait a year for this. Number 2, I've waited 45 years to see Steven Spielberg direct a musical, West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story. And number 1 is a tie. Now, number 1 is Dune, yes, but also Justice for Han. Justice for Han. Justice for Han. You can put that as a runner-up, or you can put it with Dune as number 1 most anticipated movie and call it Justice for Han.
You have Fast and Furious 9 above James Bond, No Time to Die?
That's right, damn it.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I just thought you would have it above that?
I could not in good conscience. I just had to mention it. Dune is my number 1. I had to say Fast and Furious 9, Justice for Han, because I couldn't, I looked at this list. There's a lot of movies on my list. Like, look, Suicide Squad, totally up there. The Candyman, The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Movies I think are going to be really good.
Candyman's another one that could be very good that you just
Death
mentioned.
on the Nile. I'm dying to see Eternals. There's 32 movies on my list that I'm literally really, really, really anticipating. But there's, for various reasons, I had a few different things, but this is a great, the pandemic has basically made 2021 one of the greatest. I don't think I've ever been so excited for a slate. And every month, like I look at things like in May, Black Widow, Godzilla vs. Kong, Spiral from the Book of Saw, which I really want to see. Fast and Furious 9 and Infinite, another science fiction movie coming out. March, Coming to America 2, The King's Man, The Many Saints in Newark, Morbius, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Some of these months have movies I'm anticipating every week. It's unbelievable. And right now, The Eternals and Spider-Man 3 are scheduled to open on the same day.
Which is, that'll change. Of course, that'll change.
It's crazy.
But, just to remind you guys, so we'll take you down again. For me, I had honorable mentions: Top Gun, Shang-Chi, Nightmare Alley, The Tragedy of Macbeth, Eternals, and Little Things. My number 10 was Morbius. Number 9, 3,000 Years of Longing. Number 8, Mission Impossible 7. Number 7, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Number 6, Spider-Man 3. Number 5, Nomadland. Number 4, Suicide Squad. Number 3, No Time to Die. Number 2, A Quiet Place 2. And number 1, Dune. Rob has got at number 10, Godzilla vs. Kong. At number 9, The Little Things. At number 8, The Many Saints of Newark, the prequel to The Sopranos. Number 7, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Number 6, The Tomorrow War. Number 5, The Last Duel. Number 4, The Matrix 4. Pardon me. Number 3, No Time to Die. Number 2, West Side Story. And number 1, sharing top spot, I suppose, is Dune and Justice for Han, Fast and the Furious 9. The question is, guys, listen, there are a lot of films coming out, and what excites us, what we each look forward to the most, will vary from person to person for different criteria and for different reasons. These are ours, but there's many, many others. I want you guys to do a little bit of homework. Jump into the comment section and give us your list. What are your 10? And they don't necessarily have to be in order if you don't want, but what are your most anticipated films of 2021? We certainly have the potential to have a fabulous year of movies ahead of us. Jump on down there and leave your thoughts there. Okay, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's now move on and start taking your live comments and questions, shall we? Let's jump on over and start getting right to it. We're going to start things off here with a guy who's great in bed writes. What's your favorite example of the actor paradox? For example, in Shazam, Freddy says, it gets real Game of Thrones around here, even though Momoa plays Aquaman. So is there a Game of Thrones show with a different Khal Drogo actor in the DCEU? Thanks and bring on the filthy. Well, here's the thing. And Fanimator saying, John, you forgot Black Widow. I did not forget Black Widow. Just so you know, I did not forget it. I'm looking forward to it, but it's not in my most anticipated list. You guys know I'm not super excited for Hawkeye or Black Widow, so there's that. Anyway, you got to understand, we live in a world with all these blockbusters now and all these actors who every actor now lines up to be in these big blockbuster films. It's not the way it always used to be. So every movie you get, if somebody makes a pop cultural reference, there is a decent chance it's going to cross over with an actor who's actually in that movie. To me, the big one is obviously Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool, where he assassinates himself for reading the Green Lantern script. That was amazing. He assassinates himself. That's the biggest one there. I'm sure if I sat around and thought about it, Rob, I could think of some other examples of actor paradoxes being created in a movie, like referencing a movie in a movie where an actor in that movie was also in the movie being referenced. But if I sat down and thought about it for a while, I could probably come up with more. Do you have any off the top of your head that stand out to you?
Well, gosh, I don't know. I mean, right off, no.
Yeah.
I have a million thoughts right now, and I'm not coming up with just one. I feel like my brain is being flooded with ideas.
Yeah. This is one of those things we don't just carry around off the top of our heads.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I'd have to think about it, though.
Yeah, me too. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, Happy New Year, John and crew. Congrats on the documentary. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. My favorite comic book movie of 2020 was The Old Guard on Netflix. Hoping they do a sequel soon. Taking this movie into consideration, do you think Sonic is still better? Yeah, so when we talked about the comic book movies of 2020, I specifically mentioned the traditional comic book movies of 2020. Old Guard is not what you consider a traditional comic book movie because Old Guard is not a traditional comic book. So I don't include that in the list. I mean, you could semantically, theoretically and technically you could say that, but I honestly don't count it as such. But Old Guard is one of my favorite films of 2020. I loved Old Guard. I thought it, other than Trial of the Chicago 7, I thought Old Guard was the best thing that came out on Netflix in 2020. It's fantastic. And yes, I do consider it to be better than Sonic. Sonic may have been better than all the traditional comic book movies, the 4 that came out in 2020, but yes, Old Guard I think was better than Sonic. All right, thanks for sending that in. Alpha Kevin writes, started reading the Dune series because what else am I supposed to do during lockdown? And I love it. I've seen the trailer for the movie and can already only see that cast in my mind while reading the book. The power of a first impression. Man, that is an interesting, Rob, that's an interesting predicament to be in, that you saw the trailer before you read the book, and now those faces you saw in the trailer are probably going to forever be imprinted in that person's mind. As somebody who has been a lover of the Dune books for as long as you have been, what do you think really overall of the casting they've done with this movie?
I really love the casting a lot. I mean, people always talk about how Paul Atreides in the book is younger, and indeed he is, but Timothée Chalamet has that young angelic face, and especially with that mop top of hair they've given him, it makes him look even younger. And I think that they've done a fantastic job with bringing in, it's not just the actors, it's how they all kind of look together. And I feel like the way they've cast everyone, it feels like collectively they belong in the Dune universe, which is kind of like, as much as I really like David Lynch's Dune, I felt like some of the casting, people like Sting. I couldn't get over the fact that I'm looking at Sting playing Fade Ralpha, and I'm like, he was cool, but I don't think they gelled. This cast looks like they all belong in the same universe, which I think that's a tough thing to do. And I'm really excited. I mean, and the action figures from this movie have dropped already. So you can see what Stellan Skarsgård's going to look like as Baron Harkonnen. And I'm like, man, that's going to be dope to watch. I can't wait.
Very excited. Again, my number one and your number one most anticipated film of the year. By the way, there's some confusion in the chat board. Some people saying, doesn't John know that Sonic was based on a video game, not a comic book? No. If it's a reference to a topic we had last week where we said, was Sonic as a video game movie better than any comic book movie that came out that year? So so don't be confused. Okay, next up, Double Crit writes, Happy New Year, John. Thank you so much, Double Crit. For the past few years, I've been using you and similar content creators to help mask tinnitus. Music and noise works too, but you're kind of like our very own living baby driver. But I'd rather hear analysis, discussion, etc. all day as they have informative value. Keep up the good work. Well, thanks so much, man. And thank you for allowing us to be a part of that. for you. We're glad we could be here and be of service. Now, all you got to do is become a great car driver and go get in touch with Edgar Wright, and you should be all set. But no, seriously, man, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And we're happy we can be here to help, man. All right. Double Crit also writes, amidst all the talk about Wonder Woman 84 and Soul, I noticed that nobody's talking about Monster Hunter, and for good reason. It's meh. But at least it wasn't a disappointment due to low expectations. Also, some of the visuals were great, especially on the big screen. Robbie, I'll be honest with you, I'd completely forgotten all about Monster Hunter because, number one, I had no interest in it in the first place, and then I thought the trailer completely sucked. So I haven't seen it. Like, for all I know, it's the best film of the year. I don't know. I haven't seen it. Did you get around to watching it? Because
we're talking not loving monsters. Monster Hunter with Mila Jovovich.
Yes.
Paul Anderson.
Yes.
I have not seen it, but dude, how can I not see that movie? Come on. I need to see it. It looks rad. I mean, it might be meh, but the movie is called Monster Hunter, and you've got military ordnance and military people going after monsters. I mean, if you didn't know what you were going to get going in, the title should tell you everything you need to know. As long as I get monsters being hunted, I think I've won. It's
called Monster Hunter. As long as you got monsters being hunted, we're all good. All right. If I do watch it, I'll let you go. I'll tell you what, what movie I do want to see? It's the one with, why am I freezing on the name of the girl? Three names, the girl who plays Hit Girl.
Chloe Grace Moretz.
She's got that new one, Something in the Clouds or Up in the Clouds. I'm hearing great things about that. I think sometime today I'm going to sit down and watch it.
And I've heard wildly mixed things about it.
Have you? Okay.
It's a girl in a B-17 bomber with gremlins, and it's like Twilight Zone meets heavy metal, that one segment in heavy metal. And I love Chloe Grace Moretz. What's not to love? Gremlins on a B-17, shenanigans during World War II. I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm in. I'll watch that. It's like I feel the same way about any movie that has an astronaut or a spacesuit or a spaceship in it. I don't care. I will watch it.
And by the way, thanks, Bill 4393 in the live chat. Remind you, it's Shadow in the Clouds. Shadow in the Cloud. It looks really good. I'm going to watch it sometime later today. All right. Skywalker Ranch Dressing writes, why do I seem to be the only one that doesn't notice plot holes and inconsistencies in movies while watching Rise of Skywalker, Wonder Woman 84? I get the impression that some people who go into movies are ready to analyze and dissect them before just enjoying them. That's not true, Sky. See, here's the thing. There is nothing wrong with the fact that you don't notice them, and there's nothing wrong that other people do. Art hits us all in different ways. And if you're sitting there and you're watching a movie and it's just hitting you in such a way that certain things that may stand out to other people don't stand out to you, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're somebody that things that other people don't really pay attention to or doesn't really become an issue for them, but it does for you, well, that's the way you experience it. We all experience art in different ways. It's not that you're blind to the problems, and it's not that somebody else is nitpicking. No. You sit down as an audience member, you experience the art, and it hits you in a certain way. And it hits us all in different ways. So there's no fault with you. There's no fault with the way somebody else sees it. It's just the way we all experience art in a different way, man. So there's nothing wrong with you. All right, next up, Ben Rayner writes, hi, John. Happy New Year's. Congrats on the house. Thank you so much. I figured something out during the holidays. There's two groups of people in the world. Group one, people who love Hook, and group two, people who are just wrong. I am kidding. All film is subjective. Anyway, Happy New Year's and bring on the filthy. Yeah, Hook is one of the films that Rob and I will debate. Look, there are many movies that Rob loves and I hate, and that I love and Rob hates and whatever. But one of those films that we will always disagree on from now to the end is, of course, Steven Spielberg's Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman's classic Hook. Rob is not a fan. Bangarang, Rob. Bangarang. You break my heart a little bit every time I hear you say you don't like that movie. I love that movie. But yeah, that's one of the ones we'll always disagree on. All right, next up. Thanks for that, Ben. Next up, Kasayan writes, when it comes to Kingdom, I want to recommend it if you like season 1 of Friday Night Lights. It's like that. Aged up, swap Connie Britton and Kyle Chandler with Frank Grillo and Kylie Sanchez / Dylan Texas for Venice, California football for MMA. I have never watched Friday Night Lights. I've watched the movie. What? Yeah. I've watched the movie. But there's a lot of television. I've just over the years, I've never had a lot of time for TV. So there's a lot of great TV I've never had a chance to watch. But I've been having more and more people tell me that Kingdom is a show that's really good and that I should check out. And I've never really been all that interested. Is that one? Have you ever watched Kingdom with Frank Grillo?
I have not. But Friday Night Lights is one of my favorite TV shows
of
all time.
You keep mentioning it. So at some point, I'll probably have to watch that one myself. Thank you for the recommendation on that, Casey, and I appreciate that. I'll add your recommendation to the list, and I just may have to check out Kingdom at some point here. All right. Not Crazy writes, hi, John Campea. A few people complaining that Wonder Woman is being fast-tracked to promote more female lead movies, which is stupid. The reason it's coming out, as you said before, a new Superman movie, mostly due to plan already put through, and Warner Brothers has only recently... They only just hired J.J. Abrams, who is in the process of planning a new Superman movie. Unlike Patty Jenkins, who already had a third movie planned before Wonder Woman 84 release, and yet some fans saying it's Warner Brothers' woke agenda. It's stupid the way some people think. Yes, I mean, that's just it. There are some people who are just plain stupid. There are people who are just plain ignorant. And there are people who are willfully stupid and willfully ignorant. Listen, the reality is, and nobody wants to talk about this, before Marvel made Black Widow or Captain Marvel or Black Panther, Marvel literally made 20, give or take one or two. Marvel literally made 20 movies in a row with white male leads. All of a sudden, they make Captain Marvel. Marvel's woke. Oh my God, Marvel's woke. Oh, we're so fragile. We can't handle this. I mean, it's sad. It's sad and it's pathetic. It's like, really, wait a minute, time out. They just made 20 in a row. DC, I mean, they had Man of Steel, Batman versus. I mean, they didn't even put Wonder Woman in the title of that one. They made Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, Justice League with it, but no, listen. The reason that, listen, I much prefer Man of Steel. To Wonder Woman. I do. Everybody knows this. But the reality is, when people ask the question, understandably, how are we already planning a Wonder Woman 3 when we haven't even got a Man of Steel 2 yet, Rob? You know, I see a lot of people asking that question, and it's understandable because there are those of us who really appreciate Man of Steel. But the reason Wonder Woman 3, well, first of all, that Wonder Woman gets Wonder Woman 2 and a Wonder Woman 3 before we hear about another Superman movie, which is in the works now, by the way, is because more people liked the first Wonder Woman than liked Man of Steel.
Right.
Wonder Woman, the first film, got higher critic ratings, higher audience ratings, and a better box office performance. It won the trifecta. It beats Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel is an infinitely better film, don't get me wrong. But in all three of the major categories, audience reaction, critic reaction, box office, Wonder Woman beats Man of Steel in all three. That's why, and that's the only reason why, you saw them move forward with a Wonder Woman 2, and before they even released Wonder Woman 2, had planned to move forward with Wonder Woman 3. It's just that simple. Anything else that you hear other people whining and bitching and crying about is just because they want to make an issue out of it. They want to introduce their own agenda to the conversation. The reality is, look, there's just no way around it. The first Wonder Woman outperformed Man of Steel in every important category. Audience reaction, critic reaction, box office. It shouldn't have. It shouldn't have, but it did. And what did happen, not what should have happened, is what business people make decisions based on. What did happen, not what should have happened. On facts rather than preferences. And so for that reason, that's why we're getting, and listen, I'm sitting here dying for a Man of Steel 2 more than anybody on the planet, but that's why it worked out the way it did. Anyway, let's move on here. Let's see here. Philip writes, one of two. Hello, John. Hope you're having a better year than last so far. My absolute favorite movie world has been Harry Potter for as long as I can remember. Do you think we will see any movie/spin-offs from after the events of Deathly Hallows Part 2? My idea would be to see where the Malfoy family went, maybe they are now fugitives fleeing the Death Eaters, fighting for what they have left in their family. Spinoff. Maybe there's a new evil leader who can make a cameo, maybe make a way for new movies. Rob, that ever since Harry Potter ended, there has been a lot of conversations about what, how can they continue on? Now, then they did that one, the stage play, they wrote the book, was The Sorcerer's...
The Cursed Child.
Yeah, that's it. Which we were certainly more focused on the next generation of kids and all kind of stuff. And my wife's a huge Potter fan. She didn't like it, all that kind of stuff. But the question becomes, forget Fantastic Beasts, forget other kind of spin-offs. Are we going to see another true, real Harry Potter movie where Potter is now later on in life? You know what? I never really thought anything's possible, but the reality is Emma Watson, it looked like Emma Watson's star trajectory was she was going to be the next Julia Roberts, but that momentum the last couple of years has kind of fizzled out a bit. Daniel Radcliffe, who's turned out to be a very good actor, by the way, but his career he's not an A-lister at this point. So that career he's doing some really good, interesting indie projects, but not much more beyond that. What's the name of the guy? Rupert Grint, whoever the name of the third one was. Who was a very important part of that trio, but he's never really put together a career to speak of per se since then. I think the more time that goes on, I think the likelihood increases. There's a lot of times, Rob, we talk about the more time that passes, the less likely this is to happen. I feel like for this Harry Potter thing, the more time that goes on, maybe the chances go up. Because look, Ralph Macchio and the guy who plays Johnny in Karate Kid, they didn't really have a lot going on. So say, hey, you want to do a Karate Kid reunion? We'll call it Cobra Kai. Sure.
Yes.
And they all come back and do it. So you know what? I will give it another a true Harry Potter movie with Harry, Hermione, all that kind of stuff. I'll give it a solid 25%. And I wouldn't have said 5% a year ago, but I'll say 25%. What do you think about that, Rob?
You know what? I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be one, to be honest. I would like to see something like that happen. I think it could be interesting. What happens in life, when you get older? Yeah, why not? Why not do 2 more trilogies or whatever?
2 more trilogies.
Why not?
They'll be printing their own money. Look, I like the Fantastic Beasts movies. I do. But it's not like the Fantastic Beasts movies have been tearing it up. So, but I guarantee you, Rob, if they come out in 2022 with a new Harry Potter movie, and it's Harry and Hermione and what's the name of the third kid? Rupert Grint's character. Why can't I remember the name of the actor, but I can't remember the name of the character. But anyway, you have the 3 of them back, and it's now them older. And I am telling you right now, Ron, everybody's reminding me. Thank you,
Ron
Bob
Weasley.
and Jared and Quirky and Nay. Bob Weasley, that's right, of the Weasley family.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Rob, notwithstanding whatever the situation the pandemic is in by 2022, and if movie theaters are still around. So just all that aside, that Harry Potter movie, that's $1 billion film. They do that, it's $1 billion film. And everybody's laughing all the way to the bank. And I guarantee you, the only thing holding it up, because I believe Emma Watson would do it. Maybe 2 years ago she wouldn't have because of the way her career was going, but I think it's softened a bit. And I love Emma Watson. I think she's great. But I think Emma Watson would do it. I think Rupert Grint would do it. I think Daniel Radcliffe would do it, especially when they see things like going on, like with Karate Kid and whatever. I think Warner Brothers would do it in a heartbeat. I think the only thing holding it up is the one person who holds all the power when it comes to Harry Potter, and that's J.K. Rowling. I think she's the only one holding it up. Other than that, if they did it, I'm telling you, it would be $1 billion film. It would be $1 billion film. I'm just telling you, it would be. And I'm not even a Potterhead, but it would be $1 billion film. All right, next up. That was King Artos writes. King Artos of Monteval. Blah, blah, blah. King Artos of Monteval writes, I just wanted to say Happy New Year to the entire John Campea family and to all the fans that enjoy the show. Last month, I recommended a show, Warrior, on Cinemax. I recall you saying that you did not have the app. Good news, it has been added to HBO Max. Really? And I'm familiar, because clearly this is not the Tom Hardy MMA movie Warrior, but I was very unfamiliar with this show. And again, I didn't have Cinemax. I will keep my eyes open. Thank you for the follow-up on that, King Artos. I appreciate that, man. And if any of the rest of you guys have seen this Warrior show, please leave your thoughts in the comments and what you think about it. All right. Thanks again. Thanks again for that, King. Next up, only troopers are so precise. The first lie that Obi-Wan Kenobi said. There is a YouTuber, CT5s, who does a great job of tracking on-screen and off-screen Star Wars death counts. So as it stands for on-screen deaths, it's Empire 4,763,004 to Rebels 189,601, or 25 dead for every one. For 25 dead Imperials for every one Rebel. I did not know. Well, that's that's got to be wrong, because the death toll in A New Hope would be way higher. They literally blew up a Death Star that had hundreds of thousands of people, and they blew up Alderaan. They blew up the planet of Alderaan. So, that's, unless they're just not counting that, but how do you not count that? That would,
you got to count that.
Yeah, you have to count that. That has to be up there. All right, thanks for that, Only Troopers. Brazilian dude writes, initially, I didn't like the title WandaVision, preferred Vision and the Scarlet Witch, like the comics. Once I saw the trailer, I got it. Once I saw the trailer, I got it. They were playing with the word television. Now I love it. Never judge a book by its title. So excited for January 15th. And Rob, a new 1-minute spot came out today for WandaVision. Looks as bonkers and weird as everything else. I can't wait to see this. Now listen, you know how I feel about titles. I don't care about titles. Titles mean nothing. Titles, no, other than marketing. A title does not make a movie any better or any worse. They don't do anything. So I really don't care about the title of a show or a movie is simply a marketing tool. It's something a bunch of marketers sit down with and they come up with, and it's just a marketing tool. That being said, I still like or dislike titles, right? I don't really care about them. They have no importance, but like John Carter should have been called John Carter Mars.
Yes.
What was the ultimate name of the movie? Live, Die, Repeat.
The movie was called Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow, which is the name of a bad Sunday afternoon soap opera. It should have been called
All You Need Is Kill.
All You Need Is Kill is exactly what it should have been called. So I like and dislike, sure, it's just like anybody, but ultimately they're not important. But I'm with you. WandaVision. I didn't mind the title at first, but yeah, the more I see the spots, it's like, oh, this is also a very fitting title. This is a fitting. And Rob, I'm telling you what, I am so looking forward to WandaVision. What are we at? 11 days. 11 days till WandaVision. What do you think about the title of it right now?
I love WandaVision. I think is great because, like it's a play on both the characters and the fact that we're watching the world through her warped perspective. I think it's great. What's not to love?
Oh, I cannot wait for this show, Rob. I cannot wait for this show.
And it looks bananas.
Absolutely. And once again, guys, if you have not seen it, there is a new spot that dropped today. Disney dropped a new 1-minute spot for it today. A lot of the stuff in it, we've already seen some new stuff, but looks just crazy. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, Fellowship of the Ring turns, oh my God, really? Fellowship of the Ring turns 20 years old this year. Also, Black Hawk Down, A Beautiful Mind, Gosford Park, Training Day, Monsters, Inc., and Shrek. There's a lot of great ones. That's the one to me. Listen, Rob, seriously, it doesn't matter how much time passes. It feels like I watched Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, just a little while ago. You know, I still so vividly recall the first time walking into the theater, seeing the Shire for the first time as Gandalf on his cart coming in, down to the doorway, here belong the Father, and singing a song coming in there and seeing Baggins jump up and, you're late. Visitors never Nate, Frodo Baggins. He always arrives precisely when he needs to. Anyway, that seeing the Shire and as a kid, who read The Hobbit and as a kid who read the Lord of the Rings books, I've never had a movie feel like it whisked me into that world that I had grown up hearing about or reading about like the Lord of the Rings did, especially in that opening Shire scene. I just felt like they captured my imagination perfectly. And it just was brought to life. Another movie that came close to doing that for me is not nearly as good of a movie, but the Warcraft movie. Actually, the world of Azeroth they created, when you played as much Warcraft as I have, the world of Azeroth, I really felt like I was thrust into the world of Azeroth. But that opening, man, I still can't believe that's 20. Rob, you got any memories of when you first saw Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring?
I do, actually, because I was working on the extended version.
I was waiting for you to mention that, yes.
Well, the first time we saw anything, there was a 20-minute reel that they showed at the Cannes Film Festival. And we had started, this was way before the movie opened. I want to say this was the summer of 2001. The movie came out holiday 2001. So we got the DVD team, just us. We got invited down to New Line's headquarters in Beverly Hills. And we went into the screening room and we watched the 20-minute reel they showed at Cannes. And a lot of it was the Mines of Moria sequence. And that was the first time, and they showed us clips like you saw the Shire, but that Mines of Moria sequence, I remember just thinking, because, I've never been a fan of fantasy movies, really. Up to that point, I'm like, they always, like, I liked Dragon Slayer, but I didn't love it. Excalibur was more, even though it was a fantastical version of it, it was more real world, but this was all out. I just was stunned by the Mines of Moria sequence. I'm like, oh my God, and going down the steps, and I'm like, you could tell, like, we walked out of there bouncing up and down because none of us could believe what we watched. We're like, this movie is even better than we thought it was going to be. And we knew that we've got the greatest job in the world, that we're going to document these films for the next 3 years. I mean, the whole team, it was one of those moments where you're like, and we knew how good the rest of the movies were going to be. We just knew it. There was no question in our minds, but we had to wait like 6 months to see the thing. And it was excruciating because that 20 minutes, man, that was like 20 minutes of the greatest cinema for that first showing ever. And I just was like, they nailed this, man. They nailed it. I didn't know how they did it, but they nailed it.
And the movie turns 20. Cannot believe it. Cannot believe it. Anyway, one of the greats. All right, Rye Dog writes, love the documentary. Thank you so much, Rye Dog. I appreciate that, man. And I watched Kingdom, another vote for Kingdom. I watched Kingdom on Netflix. It's amazing. Wow. One of the best shows I've seen. Best acting I've ever seen from Frank Grillo and Nick Jonas. That shouldn't be too hard from Nick Jonas. So much heart and MMA stuff. And the MMA stuff is fun. Can you please quickly check the Rotten Tomato score for the show? Thanks. Well, I will take that recommendation, Rye Dog, and add it to the list. I'm thinking I'm going to have to check this out. I had no interest in it, but I keep having more and more of you guys like Rye Dog telling me I should check this thing out. So I guess, damn, I'm just going to have to do it. Thank you for writing that in, Rye Dog. Appreciate that, man. Blake Ship writes, John, was just wondering, do you think or have you heard if Toho would possibly take back the rights to Godzilla if Godzilla vs. Kong doesn't do well, however it releases? Thanks and keep up the good work. Here's the thing. When it comes to things like rights, every contract, Rob, you know this better than most. Every contract is unique. Because you can put anything into a contract you want, right? Every contract is unique. But generally speaking, most contracts are structured in a way that you can't just say, I want to take this back. There could be other things that could relinquish the rights to the films and all that kind of things, but it can't just be Toho going, yeah, we want the rights back. Unless certain agreements were triggered in the contract, unless there are certain specific clauses in the contract to meet certain thresholds. Other than that, it's not just a matter of, when you sign a contract, the reason you sign a contract, Rob, is to prevent the other party from just going, I just don't want to do it anymore. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Do you see like a mechanism here that we could see that happen?
I think that, that it's probably a finite contract. They might have to renew it. I don't know what the deal.
Yeah, time could lapse or something.
Yeah, and maybe if it makes a certain amount of money, they get to extend their contract or something. But the Japanese are pretty hardcore when it comes to maintaining control over their franchises. So I mean, I could see Toho. The last Toho Godzilla movie, Shin Godzilla, was really good, and that was the Japanese Godzilla. And there's been the animated Godzilla films that have been on Netflix. So I could see them taking it back.
All right. Next up, we've got a Whispering Captain America. Assemble. Hey, John, in your companion video, you read my name, but then answered the question above mine instead of mine. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I go through so many questions. Sometimes I get them mixed up a little bit. I apologize for that, man. So you read my name, but then answered the question above mine instead of mine. Not angry. I just said, long hair makes you look a little younger. I love it. Go, Anne. Anyway, did you get anything interesting? Did you get anything interesting Christmas presents? Thanks. All right. Thanks for that. Yeah. And of course, my hair is, of course, longer than you've ever seen my hair before. It is, I want to cut it badly, but I'm in the midst of a war right now, Rob. I'm in the midst of a war with my wife. My wife wants me to continue growing my hair. I don't know. I think she might have caught a glimpse of one of the pictures when I had hair down to here. I don't know. I find my hair impossible to deal with. I hate my hair, but there's that. As far as interesting Christmas presents, no, not really. First of all, Ann and I just bought a house. So we were like, well, there's all of our money. So no Christmas presents this year. The house is our Christmas gift to each other. So that was our Christmas gift. And, my mom and dad are always great at Christmas, but they just called us up and said, hey, tell you what, let us buy your patio furniture. And we're like, okay, cool. So there's that. So no, like nothing really super interesting except, we got a house. And so that was our Christmas gift to each other. Thanks for that. And sorry I didn't get to your question on the companion video, man. Thanks for following up with that. I appreciate that. Right. Frankie Gouge writes, I want to give a shout to Kenny Loggins, king of the movie soundtrack. Highway to the Danger Zone has 3 of the greatest soundtrack songs. I'm All Right, Danger Zone, and Footloose, and a bunch of other songs. You know what, Rob, when I think of Kenny Loggins, first of all, if you don't watch, why did I just freeze the name of it? Archer on FX. Archer is what is probably my favorite animated show on TV. But he's a big fan of Kenny Loggins. When I actually think of Kenny Loggins, for whatever reason, the song that comes to my head is Playing with the Boys, the song that they play in Top Gun as they're playing volleyball. Playing with the boy. Like, I think that's the song they play there. Anyway, that's a song that comes to my head. What do you think of first when you think of Kenny Loggins?
Well, I'm All Right. The theme to Caddyshack. I mean,
it's all right.
In my household, golf was basically the religion of our house. So whenever I could find some pop culture thing that I could show my parents and be like, look at this, that would be something I could share with them. And they loved Caddyshack. And so did I.
Yep, that's a good one. All right, next up, Frankie also writes, back to New Year's Eve scenes in films, which you talked about on one of the companion videos. I can't believe that I forgot Forrest Gump. That's right, I mentioned Forrest Gump for you. Forrest Gump, to me, one of the best scenes in film. So, Rob, what happened is Frankie wrote in a question that I covered in a companion video. It was like, what are some of your most memorable New Year's Eve scenes? And there's a couple that stood out to me. Obviously, one is Godfather 2. I mean, that's huge. Rosemary's Babies, one, and the one I pointed out is a more recent one, but Phantom Threads, when you understand the context of the movie and what's happening in that scene, the Phantom Thread New Year's Eve scene is another good one to me. Do you have any New Year's Eve scenes in movies that stand out to you when you think about it?
Strange Days, Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days, Y2K, and also when Harry Met Sally. I came here tonight because when you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want that to start right now.
And speaking of her, there's also the big Sleepless in Seattle. Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking her, that's another one for her too. All right, next up, we got B. Wayne, New York writes, John, so over the weekend, I watched Wonder Woman 84 again, and this time with my 8-year-old niece, Kelly. During the movie, she asked me 2 interesting questions. 1, How could little Diana win the games against older, stronger women? Being the daughter of Zeus has its advantages, I suppose. Against older, stronger women. 2, what did the winner actually win? Told her I know a guy. Okay, so as far as how did Diana win against the older, stronger women, a little bit of genetics. She is the daughter of the high god Zeus. So that gives you a little bit of a leg up. So there is that. As far as what did the winner actually win? The movie doesn't say anything, probably just, maybe a medal, they get kudos, whatever. What's interesting was one of my favorite, nobody talks about this one, Rob. I think I'm very alone in this, but one of my favorite Wonder Woman comic book stories, I think it was done in the late 80s, early 90s, was when they had this run where every once in a while, I can't remember if it was every 10 years or every 50 years or every 100 years, whatever, but Diana would have to go back to Themyscira, and they actually had a games and compete in the games, and the winner of the games took on the Wonder Woman mantle and would be the Amazonians' representative in man's world. And in this one particular story, Diana lost. And she lost straight up. She lost clean to another Amazonian by the name of Artemis. This kicked off a period of time where the Wonder Woman comics was about Artemis, who was kind of like, in a way, the way Jean-Paul was in the Nightfall trilogy. Like Jean-Paul took over the mantle of Batman for Bruce when he had his back broke, but he did not have all the same temperaments nor moral guidelines that Bruce did. Artemis was a more visceral, a more violent, like stone cold warrior kind of thing. But then Diana got her own comic run, and she was wearing like biker leather. She was wearing like black leather and stuff like this. It was one of the more, so when I saw those opening games in Wonder Woman 84, that's the first thing that came to my head. Obviously it wasn't a direct reference to what was in the comics, but was that. But Rob, do you have any sort of theories about what were they competing for there at the beginning of Wonder Woman 84?
That's a good question. I think it was more of maybe like a yearly games to just celebrate the best warriors. I mean, clearly it was games that were geared toward that with the archery and balance and poise and being able to, I don't mean like balance and poise in Miss America. I mean, balancing when you're running across pikes on high in the air and running up. I think it was a thing just it was like kind of an Olympics in a way. Maybe it was the triathlon or something. They were just competing to see who was the most skilled of all of them, the skilled warrior.
Right. All right. Let's keep going here. Next up, we've got Captain Blue Pants writes, I read someone online say that Thor Ragnarok had more of an 80s feel and score than Wonder Woman 84. I thought about it and I got to agree. The 80s synth audio and the 80s sci-fi movie-like visuals in Thor felt more retro, but Wonder Woman 84 was just missing something for me. Well, that's one of my critiques and criticisms about Wonder Woman 84 was that you actually put the year in the title of the movie. And other than a brief sort of homage glimpses in the mall scene, the fact that Wonder Woman 84 takes place in 84 had no relevance to it. Like Stranger Things, Rob, I thought was far more effective in its nostalgia plays. And it's just one of the weaknesses to the movie. I just don't think Wonder Woman 84 did a good job playing into the 80s nostalgia. Hot Tub Time Machine did a much better job at that. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I'm a huge Frankie Goes to Hollywood fan. And when Diana was at that party, they played Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, which is the track off Frankie's first album. And I'm a huge fan of that band and the producer, Trevor Horn. And I'm like, that's the song they picked? I mean, not to toot my own horn, I used that song myself 20 years ago in a movie, and it was because it was cheap. I love the song, but it was easy to get. And I'm like, here's a movie that promised you, like I was looking forward to seeing a Patrick Nagel painting that was like on the cover of Duran Duran's Rio or a lot more of that era. And we just didn't get a lot of 84 itself. There was a lot of Purple Rain came out in 84. There was a lot of really great music of that era. Van Halen, we got none of that. And you'd think like even that truck chase sequence, I loved. Hans Zimmer did a good job with the score, But I'm like, there's a place to put in like Van Halen's Jump or something. I don't know. I mean, why did they do that? It would have been awesome.
Yep. All right, next up. McKeel writes, if the lasso can make you see the truth, why didn't it work on Superman and Justice League? It's simple. You're trying to make Wonder Woman 84 consistent with the movie that came before it, and they clearly threw that out. Listen, there are a lot of things in Wonder Woman 84 that are clearly inconsistent with the other movies that came before it. They clearly made a decision to adapt, and I'm not completely against this, but they clearly made a decision to adopt a little bit of the old Fox philosophy when it came to X-Men. Continuity, schmontinuity. They're more concerned about what they want to do here, so there's no explaining it, because it's just there it is. It's a contradiction. But there's about 6 or 7 significant contradictions between Wonder Woman 84 and the other DCU movies that we've seen, and they're comfortable with that at this point, and we're going to have to get comfortable with it too. The Wakanda Forever writes, Star Wars fans are fighting again, crying over green puppets and robots. I don't understand it. What, you want Killmonger to rule Wakanda? Let me at him. I know how you feel, John. P.S. I bought my first Baby Yoda figure. He better be back next season, LOL. You know what the funny thing about that is? I remember so many people, this was a big story, when the Boba Fett episode happened in Mandalorian and the Razor Crest got destroyed. There were so many people who were pissed because they've already ordered and paid for their Razor Crest model.
Yeah.
It's like, no. And then the same thing happened when Boba Fett showed up in the next episode and he had redone the paint job. A lot of people who ordered the Boba Fett where the armor's all worn and all that kind of stuff, they got pissed. And some people ordering Baby Yoda, which is apparently is like the hottest selling thing that Hot Toys has ever made, is Baby Yoda. I think they're going to be pretty upset if Baby Yoda doesn't show up in the next one, but I don't know. Rob, did you order the Baby Yoda 1-to-1 figure?
You know what? I didn't.
Really?
I didn't order the 1-to-1 scale figure. I want to get the Hot Toys quarter scale figure, or maybe I'll get the 1-to-1 scale figure. I just didn't. I've got a 1-to-1 scale Yoda, and I'm like, I like my Yoda.
Yoda's great. The Yoda one is great. All right, next up. Darth Wayne writes, my recommendations for 2020. Hamilton, great. Soul, yeah. Palm Springs, The Trial of the Chicago 7, Emma, Onward, To Five Bloods, The Invisible Man. I'm thinking of ending things. Tenet, Mank. Mank was pretty good. The King of Staten Island. Mank, I enjoyed Mank. I liked Mank. I didn't love it as much as some people did, but it was quite good. Do you know what one stands out on that list to me? Not the best movie on the list, Rob, but the one that still just makes me grin because I had so little expectations of it. And they only paid $8 million to make the movie. You heard that right. They only spent $8 million to make the movie, and they made it a complete joy. And that's Invisible Man. Like a lot of the movies on that list are fantastic. I mean, and some of them better than Invisible Man, yes. But Invisible Man is the one that jumps out to me because I'm still amazed by what they did with that movie. $8 million to make that movie. Rob, most movies have a bigger food and craft budget on their films than what they made that Invisible Man movie for. And if you guys have not seen it, you really should treat yourself. It's not the best film of the year, but when you understand what they did for so little, it's so impressive. What were your thoughts of Invisible Man?
I loved it. And I thought, look, it really goes to show what you can do with a great script, great acting, and creative direction. A movie that comes out, that was a pretty big hit, Invisible Man. It made another triumph for Blumhouse. And it shows that, I think that the idea that studios moved away from a business model, all they're trying to do now is get home runs. Let's spend $150 million to $200 million so we can make $1 billion. But if you could make an $8 million movie that grosses over $100 million, and you do that 4 or 5 times a year, that's some good meat and potatoes money that keeps your bottom line solid. And I think one of the great things about what Blumhouse does is that's their wheelhouse. That's where they're working, and it's working for them.
Yep, it certainly is. Okay, we got time for just 1 or 2 more quick ones here while Rob is still with us. The next one we've got is Mark 2021 writes, John, I know you're a big fan of Daniel Day-Lewis. He is the greatest of all time. He is the GOAT. Have you seen a movie called In the Name of the Father? Yes. If not, I highly recommend it, based on a true story. So it's got everything. First of all, you got Daniel Day-Lewis. It's got the legal thriller angle. It's got what was the big thing a lot of movies made things about back in the day, was the IRA and all that kind of stuff. Truly one of the many triumphs on the resume of the GOAT. Daniel Day-Lewis, greatest of all time. Rob, did you ever get around to watching In the Name of the Father?
I saw it when it first came out.
Oh, wow.
It was tremendous. I mean, that was, My Left Foot and In the Name of the Father were the two movies that I was like, my God, Daniel Day-Lewis is just a beast.
Oh, yeah.
What an actor.
All right. Next up, we've got Anonymous Viewer writes, been following your channel for years. Thanks for all the great content and Happy New Year. Well, thank you so much for that, Anonymous. It's always nice when somebody wants to take a moment just to write in something and say something kind. So thank you so much, man. And I'm glad you're here and being a part of it with us. All right. Hindsight is 2020. Tips in $21. Thank you, Hindsight, for supporting the channel on that level, man. My top 10 most anticipated of 2021 films. Number 1, Dune. Number 2, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Doesn't really count because technically it's a miniseries, but we'll let you have it. Number 3, Suicide Squad. Number 4, No Time to Die. Number 5, The French Dispatch. Number 6, A Quiet Place, Part 2. Number 7, Minari. Number 8, In the Heights. Number 9, Last Night in Soho. Number 10, Godzilla versus Kong. You know what? The French Dispatch, it's an interesting one you bring up there, Hindsight, because that was a movie, Rob, that obviously because of who's directing it, and then you look at the cast and all this kind of stuff, like we were quite big on it. When the trailer dropped for it, it actually sapped away some of my enthusiasm. You know, it's just a trailer. Yeah, I was not a fan of the trailer. I didn't like the trailer myself. Where's your anticipation level like right now for that one?
I'm a big Wes Anderson fan, and it looked as Wes Anderson as can be, and I thought the trailer was a hoot. I really liked it a lot.
Yeah, that's a good one. And again, you got a couple of really great ones in here that were all obviously No Time to Die. Suicide Squad was on my list. Dune was on my list. Quiet Place Part 2 is on my list. Godzilla versus Kong, that's on Rob's list. In the Heights is one I just don't know about. Like it's the next one from the Hamilton creator Lin-Manuel Miranda. Yeah. And so on that level, I'm excited, but again, I don't know. The trailer didn't do much for me. But then again, if I had watched a trailer for Hamilton before having seen Hamilton, I'm not so sure the trailer for Hamilton would have done it for me either. Now, fortunately, I had already seen the stage show and I knew how great it was. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be spectacular and awesome, but it's just not really high on my list for me. Where you're thinking right now? Because I know you're looking forward to West Side Story. What's your anticipation for this?
Yeah, I mean, I like musicals, and the In the Heights trailer really got me. I know it's based on yet another popular show, and I think it looks great. I mean, you've got somebody, again, a creator that's bringing something. He's working at the top of his game, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great.
All right, Rob. We know you got things to do, and you were so gracious to hang around longer today because we had the technical issues earlier. But thanks for being here. We'll, of course, see you again tomorrow. But in the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
All right, dude. Thanks a lot for being here, and I'll talk to you again soon, brother. Take care.
All right, man. See you later.
All right, guys, that is the one and the only, the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, but we still have about 25 minutes to go here, so let's keep going through your live questions, shall we? And again, thanks for sending that in, Hindsight. Appreciate that, man. Darklock 63 also tips in $20. Thank you for that, Darklock. Writes, Barbara renounced her wish. However, nothing stops her from seeking other mystical or gods related means to get her power back. The post-crisis Cheetah received her power through a mystical ceremony. Cersei is also a possible means of Cheetah's return. Yeah, one of the things that we said earlier in one of the companion videos was what would have been really good is if either in the movie, what would have fixed some of the problems, not all of them, but would have fixed some of the inconsistency problems with Wonder Woman 84, is if near the end of the movie, or even in a post-credit scene, if Barbara got approached and confronted by the god that made the Dreamstone and said, I am pleased to see your wrath against the pestilent Diana. I will bequeath you power, something along those lines. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, that itself would be an inconsistency because in the first Wonder Woman, they said all the gods were dead, but whatever. But that would have fixed a couple of issues, right? That would have fixed a couple of things. So yes, absolutely, Darklock. I think there is a possibility here that maybe now that she knows about the Amazonians, that she knows about Diana's power and all that kind of stuff, maybe she now turns her incredible scientific mind to tracking down and hunting down myths and legends and to find a way to get that power back. And maybe she comes across one of the surviving gods. Who knows? But it is what it is for now. But that would have been a good way to fix a lot of the problems if they had done that in the movie. All right. Min Tran writes, John, say like in August, the pandemic is over and restrictions can be at a minimum at ease. Do you see Netflix reversing cancellations like Glow or Sabrina? No, I don't. Netflix, listen, without the pandemic, Netflix is very quick to cancel shows. And they're great at, I mean, I'm always critical about Netflix's original movies because 95% of them are crap, but their shows, they have a really good success rate with their shows. They bat a much higher percentage with their shows. But that being said, before the pandemic was ever a thing, they are very cancel happy. They are very, very cancel happy. They cancel things very quickly. And so, no, with or without that, I don't see them bringing back Glow or Sabrina. You never know. I mean, anything's possible. But again, it's not like Netflix keeps shows running for 8 seasons until the pandemic came and then they started canceling shows. No, this is exactly what they did before the pandemic. It's what they did during the pandemic, and it's what they're going to continue to do after the pandemic. So I don't think so. And I really like Glow. I like Glow a lot. All right, next up. Min Tran writes, 1 of 2. I'm curious about when the decision to leave the 2 opening scenes for Wonder Woman 1984 was made, because for months now, Cinemark is running a campaign in there with the Wonder Woman mall scene to get people to see it in theaters, including the showing of Wonder Woman 1984 that I saw. I'm just saying it would have been a little weird if they decided to cut it out. Well, don't forget, Wonder Woman 84, that movie was done over a year ago. Like maybe even a year and a half ago. That movie was finished and done ages ago. This movie was originally looked at coming out last year, right? So that is a decision that would have been made a long, long time ago, man. Yeah. Before edits are finalized and put together and before any marketing starts, those types of decisions have already been made. It does happen that some get made after that as well. Absolutely. But the decision to keep those scenes in there would have happened ages ago. Absolutely ages ago. So yeah, so there's no real, nothing to see here, Min Tran, nothing to see here. All right, let's move on here. Anonymous viewer writes, misnomer, a wrong or inaccurate name or designation. Morning sickness is a misnomer for many women since the nausea can occur at any time during the day. Synonyms, law, misnaming, mistaking the nature, whatever person. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I'm not quite sure that's directly in reference to. Anyway, the Wakandan Forever writes, I have always been a movie guy. I never paid attention to TV or streaming shows. Watching the show and theater shutdowns got me into exploring new shows. I like chess, Star Wars, Marvel, and DC. Now there are shows that fill all of those areas. It's a cool time. I mean, that's the thing too. Like I myself have always been more of a movie guy. And because of my work, I have never had a lot of time to watch a lot of TV. So I've seen a bunch of shows, but I haven't seen a lot of TV. Like someone who's really into TV has watched a lot more TV than I have because I just haven't had time to invest to watch a lot of TV. So one of the things about the pandemic era has been, hey, it's given me an opportunity to get caught up on a lot of stuff. Still not everything, but it's given me an opportunity to get caught up on a lot of stuff. So that's one of the good things there. That's a silver lining, if you will. All right, next up. Connor Farley writes, hey, John, I managed to catch Promising Young Woman starring Carey Mulligan earlier today. Holy crap, I am floored. It's getting some Oscar buzz, by the way. That movie's getting some Oscar buzz. I am floored. I am hesitant to use the word masterpiece, but I honestly can't think of anything else that can actually describe it. A must watch. And by the way, you got to be happy for Carey Mulligan. I think she has been one of the more, and I'm guilty of this too, one of the more underrated performers in the business today. Now, Promising Young Woman is one of those films. I haven't watched it yet because it's one of those movies. Ann and I, we don't do this for a lot of movies or shows, but we have a few things that we say, okay, we won't watch it until we see it together. That's one of them. So I have not watched it yet. I'm hoping I get to sit down and watch it in the next like 24 to 48 hours, provided Ann has the time. Then again, I still have to run out and to Riverside and, go look at the renovations being done in my house right now, but hopefully in the next 24, but I'm already hearing some early award stuff for it. So I'm hearing glowing things about it, Connor. Thanks for throwing in that recommendation. All right. Double Crit writes, a few days ago, you brought up older media's outdated visions of the future, i.e. 2015 as depicted in Back to the Future 2. I think my favorite movie example is 1994's Time Cop. The year is 2004 and humanity has perfected time travel. Yeah. So what was brought up was like when you look at a movie from years ago that projected and looked into the future as to what a future year our world would be like. And that year came and went and it was nothing like that. Back to the Future 2 is a great example of that. Ain't nothing like that. 1984 was not the Wonder Woman thing, but the actual novel. 84 came and it was not really a lot like that. It is kind of funny when we see this. Very, very rarely do we see that fill out. But yes, Time Cop. The year is 2004 and humanity has perfected time travel. That's a great example, man. All right, next up. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, it seems like the time has come for me to cash out that Apple TV free trial. Sometime this month, the movie Palmer comes out, and it looks solid, at least from the first trailer. Do you plan on tuning into this? I'm not even sure what Palmer is, to be honest with you. Let me look it up here. I don't stay up to date with what's going on Apple TV Plus, to be honest with you. It's just got Justin Timberlake in it. Yep. I'm completely unfamiliar with it. An ex-convict strikes up a friendship with a boy from a troubled home. Okay. Well, there's that. Listen, I have also had the free thing because I bought an iPad Pro last year. And about 2 weeks after I bought my iPad Pro, I got this email from Apple saying, hey, because you bought a qualifying product, I guess an Apple iPad Pro counts, we're going to give you 1 year of Amazon TV for free. It's like, cool. I had no interest. I had no plans on getting Amazon TV. None. None of the shows looked good to me, to be honest with you. But then I had it, and then I heard all these great things about the morning show. And I watched the morning show. I'm like, holy crap. That's really good. Morning show's really good. And then my brother-in-law, Ray, he started watching For All Mankind. And so I started watching it with him. I'm like, holy crap, this is excellent. For All Mankind is fantastic. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really good. Then there's that one with Chris Evans where his son is accused of murder. I still haven't watched that one, but I hear a lot of people say that one's really good. They had the Tom Hanks, World War II Navy movie, which honestly wasn't all that good. Sorry, Tom, but that one wasn't all that good. But still, I think I'm planning on keeping it. Not to mention Ted Lasso. That was Apple TV, right? Ted Lasso was Apple TV. That was one of my favorite shows of the year. Ted Lasso was a show that we really needed in 2020. 2020 was a show we really needed. A show like Ted Lasso that was so heartwarming and joyful and funny. And I just love that thing. So Jimmy22 is mentioning that the name of the Chris Evans show is Defending Jacob. I still got to watch that. So I think I am planning on giving it, when my free trial runs out, my free, because I bought an iPad thing runs out, I think I'll give it another year and see how they continue to develop. I mean, if nothing else, listen, Apple has enough money to buy and sell Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, Universal 5 times over. So they certainly have all the resources in the world to make a good go of things. But I've seen enough good stuff on there that I'm probably at least willing to give it another year. I'll give it another year. Anyway, thanks a lot for that, man. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, one of the things I liked about the prequels is that Lucas portrayed the Jedi as flawed individuals that made a lot of questionable decisions and held on to problematic philosophies. Yeah, that is something that, listen, I hate the prequels, but that doesn't mean there aren't things in the prequels that I appreciated. Showing that Jedi were not these infallible godlike creatures. They were still people. And even Master Yoda talked about they're too sure of themselves. There was a little bit of arrogance. They were still the Jedi, but they weren't perfect and they had flaws. And that's one of the elements. There's not a lot of elements, but that's one of the elements of the prequels that I did appreciate was that one. So nice observation, Anonymous. Right. Another anonymous viewer writes, I strongly believe the dynamic between Qui-Gon Jinn and the Jedi Council was largely inspired by the dynamic between Jesus and the religious leaders. The prequels had some really good ideas, but the movies were badly executed. Listen, I have said forever, if you sit down and were given 2 pages that in point form ran down the prequel trilogy, like if before they made those movies, George Lucas handed you a 2-page document that just in point form kind of ran, that just in a point form way walked you through the storyline of the prequel trilogy, there are some excellent things in there. The bones were there to make an excellent trilogy. But what we have learned is it's all about execution. You can take a movie with a terrible premise like Lego, a movie about plastic building blocks, but the execution was done with such excellence, Lego Movie became one of the most entertaining and delightful films the year it came out. On the other hand, you get something like the prequels that had excellent bones. Excellent bones. George Lucas is an idea guy. But unfortunately, the execution kind of obviously left it wanting, and the prequels are things I'd love to forget, but they are canon, and so they are part of the family no matter what. All right, thanks for that, man. All right, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John, happy Sunday. This is obviously a question that came in yesterday. The only thing I want to say about Ray Fisher is that it makes me laugh that he's going after Walter Hamada, that's the president of DC, because Walter isn't even around when Justice League was being shot. I just hope this thing gets resolved one way or the other. Yeah, listen, I've given my thoughts on the Ray Fisher situation. It is interesting that he is publicly going after anybody who does not take his side. And again, listen, it needs to be emphasized for everyone. You were not there, and neither was I. And as long as I wasn't there, I don't actually know what happened. I can have my opinion about what I think happened. I can have my own personal thoughts about what I believe or don't believe. But the bottom line is, I don't know what actually happened, and you don't know what actually happened. So before too many of you get on attacking Ray Fisher, remember, you weren't actually there. You don't know what happened. Before any of you defend Ray Fisher too much, don't forget, you weren't there. You don't actually know what happened, and neither do I. And it is what it is. We can each believe, like I have certain beliefs that I've formed based on what information is available, but the reality is we don't know. And so but yeah, going after Walter Hamada is a very interesting maneuver, especially since he's so well liked, particularly by a lot of people like within like DC itself, like James Wan and everything, who's worked with Walter Hamada a long time. It's a very interesting move to now publicly go after Walter Hamada. But again, I don't know what actually went on behind the scenes. So who knows? It's a weird situation. All right, next up. McKeel writes, over under 10% Doctor Strange pops up in WandaVision. Ooh, that's 10%'s a good line. That's a good, because it is very unlikely. It is very unlikely that Doctor Strange pops up. But we know that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man 3 and WandaVision are interconnected. So there is the possibility. It's not likely that he pops up in WandaVision, but there is that possibility. 10%'s a great line. I'm going to take over 10. Over 10. I'm going to take over 10% on that. I don't think they're going to bring that aspect of the story into it yet. So I still think it's unlikely. So like under 50, But because we do know there are going to be connecting ties there, it does open the possibility. So I'm going to go over 10%. You said a perfect line at that, Mikhail, because I struggle whether to go over or under, but I'm going to take the over 10% on that. All right. Jared W. writes, hey, John, just on the Wonder Woman 84 wish thing. Everybody wants to talk about the Wonder Woman 84 wish thing. Not sure if I misheard or not, but I thought they said there was two options for resolving the Dreamstone. One, all renounce. Two, destroy the stone. As Max was the stone, does his renouncing the wish to be it destroy it? I actually addressed this, Jared, on one of the companion videos this weekend. So here's the thing. Halfway through the movie presents us with there are two options that can fix things. Option number one, destroy the stone. Option number two, everyone has to renounce whatever wishes they made, right? Those are the two options the movie presents us with. Neither happened. Okay, so we get now to the end of the movie where Max Lord renounces his wish. If him renouncing his wish meant the stone was destroyed, then that means everything's fixed. But what happened in the movie? Nothing was fixed. After Maxwell Lord renounced his wish, nothing was fixed. Because the scene after that, we see the nukes are still in the air, and then it shows us the president undoing his wish. The president saying, I renounce my wish. And only when the president renounces his wish did the nukes disappear. If Maxwell Lord renouncing his wish meant the stone was destroyed, then the oil baron wouldn't have to undo his wish. And the wall, the magic wall that just magically appeared, would have disappeared. But that's not what happened. After Maxwell Lord renounced his wish, it goes through a bunch of things, and then we come to the oil lord saying, I renounce my wish. And then and only then, once the oil lord renounced his wish, did the magic wall disappear. So, what does that leave us to assume? Well, if the movie is being accurate and saying that the stone either had to be destroyed or everybody had to renounce their wish, we can only assume the stone was not in and of itself destroyed when Max undid his wish. The stone itself probably came back into being. Like once Max undid his wish to be the stone itself probably remanifested somewhere. That's the only thing we can assume. Because the movie said, if you destroy the stone, everything is safe and everything goes back to normal. But Max undoing his wish did not set things back to normal. Everybody still had to renounce their wishes individually. So it's a problem one way or it's a problem the other. It's just kind of it's just a mess they made up of that. All right. Next up, Juice writes, one of four. A Star Wars fan story. For many years, I was an AMC movie theater manager located in a mall. Neat. I was at the premiere of The Phantom Menace, and there was a massive line of fans, many in Star Wars costumes, some for days. I participated in one of those lineups, as a matter of fact. 2 of 4. I was in the lobby when, unrelated to Star Wars, chaos in the mall broke out as someone started shooting a gun in front of the theater. Mall shoppers rushed to the theater and hid. Once it felt safe, I peeked out and first noticed the mall appearing to be completely empty, except the entire line of Star Wars fans who were just yards away from the shooting. Luckily, no one was hurt, but I could never shake the shock of how insanely stupid and badass Star Wars fans are. Listen, that is such a great story. I love that because listen, we no longer live in an era because we live in a more civilized age, as Obi-Wan would say. We live in a more civilized age where most movie theaters have pre-assigned seating. You don't have to show up at a theater way early to get a decent seat. You can get your seat early, pick the seat you want, and you no longer have to go to a movie theater 2 hours early to make sure you don't get a neck breaker seat. But there was a day not long ago when, I still remember when The Phantom Menace came out. When The Phantom Menace came out, people got in line for a week just to buy their tickets. Not even to get in to see the movie. People got in line just to buy their tickets because you had to buy, back then you had to buy your movie tickets at the box office. So people would line up for a week. Some people in the dead of winter and someplace where it was cold, and they'd set up tents and they'd have their coats and all this kind of stuff. And then when the movie itself came out, you couldn't just go to the movie when it was going to start, or else you get a terrible, terrible neck breaker seat. You had to go and get in line for hours. And some people still went in line, even though they had their tickets already, and got in lines days in advance. And I guess a lot of those people were not willing to give up. Were not willing to give up their spot in line. They were not willing to give up their spot in line. Anyway, that's a great story, Juice. Thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate that. All right, next up, Andrew Holmes writes, can you imagine if at some point Emma Stone came back to play Gwen Stacy, but as Spider-Gwen? Hey, anything's possible right now, man. Fairly unlikely, but that would have definitely been insane and very Spider-Verse-y. Absolutely. And I love Emma Stone. She's an Academy Award winning actress. She's got all the charm and charisma in the world. She's beautiful, super talented. She's awesome. And I loved her Gwen Stacy. The best thing about the two Spider-Man movies with her and Andrew Garfield was their on-screen dynamic and chemistry. And her death scene was, oh my God, gut-wrenching. Even when you knew it was coming, it was absolutely gut-wrenching when they did it. But hey, listen, in a world we live in where Jamie Foxx is coming back to play Electro again, the idea of Emma Stone coming back and playing Spider-Gwen, hey, that ain't off the table. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying anything is possible in this crazy world, man. All right, Froigon Jin writes, 2020 was uneventful, but here's my recap of the movies I actually saw in theaters. Best, The Invisible Man. Worst, Yellow Rose. Most disappointing, The Rhythm Section. Yeah, that one was. I was very, very psyched about Rhythm Section. I was very, very psyched about Rhythm Section. I really was. And that one, unfortunately, Mrs. Ryan Reynolds in there. And I love her. But yeah, that one wasn't so good. Most pleasant surprise, Underwater. Sea monster movies are my guilty pleasure. You know what? Underwater. And that's got, what's her name? Twilight Girl. Why am I freezing on her name? Come on, guys. Help me out here. Twilight Girl. I'm freezing on her name for whatever reason. Anyway, Underwater was a Kristen Stewart. Thank you. Thank you, Johnny Vu. Kristen Stewart and Richard and Amir and everybody else who read that. Kristen Stewart. That is a movie I never did get around to watching. But I heard a number of people say they actually quite liked it. Like, it got a pretty bad rap, but then I heard from a bunch of people that actually had a lot of thrills. And I mean, hey, I mean, it is what it is. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Froigon. I appreciate that. Okay, next up, we've got Johannes Jared, who writes, my top 10 movies. Number 10, 12 Angry Men. Oh, I love 12 Angry. I went down a YouTube rabbit hole the other day, just within the last 3 days. And I ended up watching one of the scenes from 12 Angry Men with Jack Lemmon. I mean, anyway, 12 Angry Men. Number 9, Shawshank Redemption. Number 8, Inglourious Bastards. Number 7, Minority Report. Number 6, The Revenant. Such a great film. Number 5, 12 Years a Slave. Number 4, No Country for Old Men. Number 3, Prisoners. Number 2, Lord of the Rings. And number 1, Blade Runner 2049. I don't see many talk about 12 Years and Revenant anymore. It's true. You don't, other than one of the things about The Revenant that was a great thing, but it had an unfortunate side effect, was the fact that they finally had Leonardo DiCaprio win his Academy Award. Unfortunately, that became the only story. And everybody kind of forgot about the movie. And everybody just talked about Leonardo DiCaprio winning his Academy Award. And that was it. Nobody else talked about anything else. And the movie is brilliant. The movie is fantastic. 12 Years a Slave is another one. And you know what? I bet you, if anything, see, that was the year that Matthew McConaughey won his Academy Award for Dallas Buyers Club. Deserved. He's amazing in that. Deserved that Academy Award. But the other guy who could have won the Academy Award that year for Best Actor was Chiwetel Ejiofor for 12 Years a Slave. If Ejiofor had won that Academy Award, I bet you a lot more people would be. I mean, still a lot of people don't talk about Dallas Buyers Club, although they should. It's brilliant. But I bet you 12 Years a Slave, if he had won that Academy Award, I bet you we would talk about that movie more today. I'm not saying it'd be on the tip of, I'm not saying it's the one that everybody's going to talk about all the time, but I bet you if Chiwetel won that award, we would be talking a lot more about 12 Years a Slave today. But that's just my take. Okay, guys, only have time for just a couple more. Let's see, just time for a couple of quick more here. Mr. Hoover writes, "Hey, John and Rob, who's not here anymore. Now that they're making the Book of Boba Fett, what are the chances that we might get to see Prince Zizor, who is, of course, from the Legends one, and a Shadows of the Empire N64 adaptation limited series with Dash Rendar and Labeouf? Jon Favreau, please do it." I think it's extremely unlikely. I think what we're going to get is there may be some tie-ins to what we saw in Solo. There might be some tie-ins to what we saw in Solo with the organization, but I don't see them going into Shadows of the Empire. I don't see them doing that. Now, that's not to say it's impossible, but Favreau and Filoni both seem more interested in staying with existing canon, particularly and Filoni himself is more interested in the things that he created. But more specifically than that, Jon Favreau seems more interested in stuff that is existing canon. Now you could say, but they mentioned Grand Admiral Thrawn. Yes, but Grand Admiral Thrawn had already been brought into the canon in Rebels, right? So because I don't see Favreau going in that direction, I'm going to say, no, I don't think they're going to do it. I'm not saying they can't, and I'm not trying to dash your hopes. I'm not, as I said, dash, no pun intended. I'm not trying to dash your hopes, and it is certainly remains in the realm of possibility. Anything's open, but do I think it's likely? When we look at the way Jon Favreau has done things so far, it seems unlikely that he would do that. So my guess is they won't, but it's not impossible. So keep hope alive, man. It's not impossible. All right. Sorry. Now, this will be the last one we do. Johannes Gerald writes, "Hey, John and Rob, have you seen the Danish movie The Hunt from 2012 with Mads Mikkelsen? Has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it got an Oscar nomination for Best Foreign Film. It is a must-watch." I'm going to say right now, I don't think I did. Let me just double check, though, because there are many times that I say I haven't seen something, then it turns out I did, in fact, see it. No, I totally know this movie, but I did not watch it. I have not seen this one. I'm familiar with the film. I've seen the poster. I've seen trailers for it. I've seen some outtakes from it, or some clips from it, but I've never actually watched it. But I've heard, if you're a Mads Mikkelsen fan, this is something you got to see. So I have heard that before, but I've not seen this one myself personally. All right, guys, listen. That will do it for me today. We still got questions to come from Anonymous, Angry Ogre, Wakandan Forever, The Fighting Canuck, I love that name, and a few others. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to do a companion video a little bit later today. We're almost all caught up. We fell behind a lot. You guys know that we fell behind a lot on the live questions because we went several days without doing a show over the Christmas break, and we've been struggling to get caught up. I did companion videos I've done like a lot more companion videos lately trying to get caught up, but we are almost all the way caught up. So I'm going to do a companion video a little bit later this afternoon and tonight to get us all the way caught up on all the questions that have been sent in. So keep your guys' eyes open for that. And you're going to see your question get answered in a companion video a little bit later today. Guys, thank you so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for always bringing his greatness and glory to be a part of the show. And a special thanks to all of you guys who sent in those live comments and questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that. Guys, the show will be back again tomorrow with me and Robert Meyer Burnett. Make sure you come back and join us for that. Also, guys, remember, there's a pandemic going on. Please do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.